Hi, David. Can you please introduce yourself and give me your current title or position, or if you're retired, the position you held when you were involved with Bob's collaborative approach to collaboration? Hi, I'm David Hall. I am retired from my career position with a public agency in the Bay Area. The position that I held for the last 7 years or so prior to my retirement was the operations director. I served in that position for the final years of my career position there. Question number 2, essentially looking at all the issues, what problems did you witness before Bob's collaborative approach arrived? I was hired in 1985 at a wastewater treatment facility. The facility was new. It was only 3 years old, and it went through a pretty rough startup during those first 3 years. The facility itself was operating rather poorly, and keeping the plant running was a challenge for the people that were working there at the time. Operations staff struggled, and they blamed the problems of the plant not running well on the engineers that designed the plant. And they basically said it was a poor design, or that it didn't get designed properly. And they felt that they were left on their own to try to figure out how to make these various systems work. And oftentimes that was through trial and error. There was very little training going on, very little skills there to deal with this. And the plant wasn't running very well. On top of that, equipment would break, as happens with any facility. But operations staff blamed the maintenance staff for not maintaining the equipment and having it ready when they needed it. On the other hand, the maintenance staff blamed the operations staff for breaking the equipment or not running it the way it's supposed to get run, or somehow misusing it or using it improperly. So there was a lot of blame going around, and it was a struggle to, but they did keep the place running, but it was a struggle, and they blamed each other for why it's so hard. It didn't help that just prior to this time, 1985, they had a labor strike, and a lot of bad blood came out of it because some people crossed over the picket line to go ahead and work and keep the place running. I don't know their motives for doing that, but they did it. And even when the strike was over, there was animosity left over regarding those that crossed the picket lines. And it showed daily and weekly. Things such as cars getting keyed out in the parking lot, nails getting put underneath tires, so when they went to leave work, they'd get a flat. Lockers being ransacked or vandalized or damaged, in some way. A lot of lunchroom tension when people ate lunch. Certain people would walk in and the tension would rise and things would get quiet, and people would sit there on opposite ends of the room from each other. And yeah, it was very, very difficult environment to come into. Another thing on top of the issues with trying to get the plant to run decent and run well, there was a real leadership vacuum. With the plant and the company still being new, there were a lot of pieces they were still putting together. Being fresh, completed from the construction. There was a lot of litigation going on between the top management folks and contractors and various contractors involved with the construction. That didn't leave much time for supervisors supervising people about people things. The people that were the supervisors at this time, they were basically the technical experts. They were the ones that could keep the plant running, could respond to, problems and get it back to going, at least poorly. But they were not trained supervisors, and they were not skilled in training people. That's the environment that Bob came in on. This facility, in terms of the region and all the facilities in that region, because there's a lot of them, this facility was literally a laughing stock in that industry. So that's kind of what we got hired into, was that. Question number 3. In your opinion, what needed to happen? What was missing that was causing these problems? From a technical perspective, not only did engineering, operations, and maintenance staff need to work together to solve the problems that were going on, staff needed to be trained question number 3. In your opinion, what needed to happen or what was missing that was causing these problems? From a technical perspective, not only did engineering, operations, and maintenance staff need to work together to solve these problems, people needed to be trained in the skills that was necessary in order to know how to do their job. And supervisors needed to be held accountable. Take 3. Question 3. In your opinion, what needed to happen and what was missing that was causing these problems? From a technical perspective, not only did engineers, operations, and maintenance staff need to work together to solve these problems, people needed to be trained on the skills needed to do their job. And supervisors needed to hold people accountable for their behavior. Supervisors needed to be trained in how to supervise people. That didn't come natural for the technical experts. From a workplace cultural perspective, holding these people accountable for their behavior became a key component to Bob's overall approach. Some people were treating others pretty badly, and this included intimidation and threats. Because of this, it was necessary to handle both of these aspects of what was needed at the same time. And this is what Bob brought to the company, brought to the table. Next question. Can you tell us about the time and circumstances when you first met Bob and when you started to see this collaborative approach as something you thought would be effective at solving these problems? Yeah, I was hired in July 1985. And Bob was hired several months later. And within our department, the operations department, Bob was hired as a supervisor. I was an operator. And within this department, we worked on 3 rotating shifts. And that happened about every 3 months. And at that time, these 3 shift people would move from one shift to the other, and not all as a group. So that each shift period, each of those shifts had a different semblance of operation staff. And so eventually, through these shift changes, shift rotations, I ended up on Bob's shift. And when I got onto his shift, he was doing things that nobody at the facility, nobody in the department was doing at all. And so he implemented many new aspects to what he did as a supervisor. This included at the very beginning of the shift period, where we have this new crew assembled, Bob sat down the entire crew and handed them a memo and read over it with them very carefully, very thoroughly. And this memo contained and described exactly what was expected of all the people on the shift, in their time on the shift, in their day-to-day work, as employees of the company, and as members of our team. And Bob read through this very thoroughly and made sure everybody really understood what was expected of them. Again, nobody was doing this. In the whole company, nobody was doing this. This was new. Another thing that Bob did was he implemented and initiated a form that he would hand out to people so they could request training of things that they felt they needed training in. This was an investment in the people on his team. And 1, to know what's expected of you. 2, if you're out there being assigned something to do a certain task and you're not sure how to do it, or you're not sure if you're doing it right, come and request training on it. We'll train you. That way, when you go to do the job, you know how to do it, and you know that you know how to do it. This was, again, new to this company. In addition to that, Bob implemented very regular meetings, weekly, bi-weekly, and he would sit the whole crew down. He'd sit down with them, say, "Hey, how things going? Everything going okay? Are there any problems out there? What can we do to solve these problems? Is there anything that you're doing in your daily job that could be, that we can do differently to improve your day-to-day job?" Asking for ideas on how to make it better around here, how to make your job better. And again, that was something new. He ended up putting together a form called a new idea form that anybody could fill out and turn in. And they would get feedback, from the supervisor or the manager on their idea. And it helped get people invested, in the progress there. One of the aspects in all these meetings that was a constant theme, it was always discussed, always on topic, was how we treat each other. That was in that shift expectations meeting that was held at the beginning of the shift period. How you treated each other was an expectation of your performance. And that was reiterated in the regular meetings that we had. In a fairly short time, Bob became the operations manager, which is the manager of the whole department. And Bob implemented this element of leadership throughout all the shifts, so that all the supervisors were expected to do this, to state the expectations, to have regular meetings, to talk about how we treated each other, to ask people for ideas to improve it, to make improvements there, to ask people what they needed training in. And as an operator, and eventually a senior operator, I found it really refreshing to know that no matter what shift I went on, this element of leadership being implemented on the shift was going to be there. That made a big difference for me and others. It brought organization, it brought order, and it brought a team aspect that wasn't there before. One of the other things Bob did as operations manager is he implemented a full-blown training program. This included not only skills training, supervisor training, leadership training, workplace culture and behavior training. I know I'm missing something. Anyways, yeah, these elements of training were key to changing the culture in the company. I know it's not just training that does it, but when you train it and you couple it with holding people accountable for their performance, for their knowledge, especially for their behavior of each other, and how they see themselves as a team member, and how they conduct themselves as a team member. The transformation of this company had begun through these steps that he took. This is where it changed. It started to change. And this company that back in 1985 was seen as a laughingstock company of the region. 5 years later, they're winning awards. That's quite a transformation. Next question. What were the positive things that started to happen in the group? Through skills training, people started to become experts in the field. They could solve problems on their own when they came up. And they could also see areas where improvements could be made based on that expertise. Their confidence grew and their contribution grew. They took on leadership roles for a specific process or system within the facility. And part of that leadership role, due to their expertise, this being a system that they're particularly drawn towards, they got involved with maintenance people, engineers, outside vendors, things like that, to improve any particular system, the one that they're the lead of, make improvements on it, solve problems that may crop up. Yeah, they stopped watching the clock and they started investing in the outcome of the company's efforts. They thought about problem solving. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Skip. They thought about problem solving and continue to bring up ideas. One very key aspect of the changes that were taking place is that as people were out doing their work, walking around the facility, they would let somebody know when something didn't look right, instead of seeing it and just walking by. That was major. That was major improvement. through behavior accountability that was being done by supervisors. I got real fuzzy. Hang on, I'm sorry. Let me fix this. Okay, there we go. Through behavior accountability and teamwork training, bad behavior no longer ruled the locker room, the lunchroom, the parking lot. Professional conduct was expected and it was given. The role of supervisors, in addition to holding people accountable for behavior, their role sorry, hang on. Let me pause. Okay, here we go again. The supervisor's role became one of them being a resource for the people on their team instead of the other way around. Supervisors overlooking bad behavior by the people that they supervise, that ended. It just ended. It was not okay, unacceptable for them in their role as a supervisor. And it ended. Process and system performance improved dramatically through these changes, through this development. And likewise, overall facility performance improved dramatically. We started having, nope, let me pause. Okay, here we go. One more time. Our project meetings took on a new element. We had planning meetings where engineers, operations, maintenance, and management all assembled, all attended the meeting. And in this meeting, we planned out new projects. And everybody in that meeting had a voice and had input. This resulted in better outcomes in our future projects. Next question. What pain and issues were resolved? Animosity between workers were resolved. Lack of skills to do your job was resolved. Lack of leadership by supervisors was resolved. Mistrust in management went way down. Low performing systems, one by one, were resolved. Moving the company forward in progress and moving it forward by a low percentage of employee base was resolved. This is a redo of that last question. Next question. What pain and issues were solved? Animosity between workers were resolved. Lack of skills to do your job was resolved. Lack of leadership by supervisors was resolved. Mistrust in management went way down. Low performing systems, one by one, were resolved. And most of all, moving the company forward in progress in its goals, its objectives, and getting there using a low percentage of the employee base was resolved. Okay, final question. Anything else you want to add in terms of positive impacts of Bob and or Bob's collaborative approach? As I noted earlier, 5 years after Bob implemented his collaborative approach, this company, this facility, went from being a laughingstock of the region to winning awards, including Plant of the Year Award and Safety of the Year Award. There's no comparison to the workplace culture in 1985 and now. Projects are a collaborative effort. Meetings are collaborative. The company mission and defining of success is a collaborative effort. And the people that experienced this change saw their own perspectives change. They saw their relationships improve. They saw their home life change. They, their own defining of what's really important to them in their life became clearer. It is these well-trained and transformed people that become golden employees. That is what Rob has brought to this company, this facility, and other facilities.